Okay, hey, what if the Rams scored a Mike Wilcher, Dale Hatcher, Greg Zuerlein, and a Reggie Doss in this year's draft? Would that make you happy? This is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline,
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the March 29th, 2023 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. Awesome day. Day started with rain, turned into blue skies, and my phone was blowing up because somebody wanted my opinion. Isn't that awesome when somebody wants your opinion? Now, I get in my day job people wanting my opinion, but I think the person that was wanting my opinion today wants to get me in a little bit of trouble, and that's okay, because the question came to me about what I think about the NHL and the players not wearing LGBTQ affirming jerseys. And I said, dude, I do a football show. I don't do the NHL. I like hockey. I do like hockey, but of all the four sports, I had to give it up when I got older because I was just too busy for it. Now, playoff hockey, I'm all in, and I am a bandwagoner. I do like the Kings. I love hockey, but I just don't have time for it. And I appreciate and respect those people who do love puck. I love puck. And the one issue that is interesting is, and I'm going to kind of defend Kaepernick here, is Colin Kaepernick took a lot of heat for protesting while he was on the field. And I was one of them. I said he shouldn't be protesting when he's on the field. If he wants to protest outside the stadium on his own time, in the Bay Area, of all places where people would support him, you'd think in the Bay Area, cool. But if he's in my uniform, employed by my club, and I'm paying his salary, no, he doesn't have the right to protest on my dime. Just like if I'm working at McDonald's, I shouldn't be telling people to go to Jack in the Box. And if you've ever worked for Coke, like I've had some friends who work for Coke, you better not let your supervisor catch you with a cup that says Pepsi on it or a Pepsi bottle in your ride or anywhere on social media, because you're going to be in trouble. And by the same measure, if I can't do that, my employer doesn't have the right to tell me what stances to take on social issues, political issues, or spiritual issues. If I'm an athlete, my job is to play for your team, score touchdowns, hit home runs, and put the ball or puck in the net. So when the NHL makes players wear LGBTQ affirming jerseys, or any league makes their players wear that, they're asking them to make a social statement. They're asking them to make a political statement that have nothing to do with scoring touchdowns. And for many, they're asking them to make a very invasive spiritual statement. That's an abuse. And I've waited to see when players would start pushing back. And I've been told by people who've covered hockey professionally, the players most like the general public with their feet and brains most grounded are hockey players. And they've pushed back. And yeah, they're saying it's political reasons in Russia, but no, I think they're just really starting to push back. And the truth is, if you want to keep my faith out of the workplace, which I agree, unless you're coming to church, in the McDonald's place, right? If you're working at McDonald's and you don't want them having spiritual discussions, that's fine. But don't dictate to your employees what your faith should say or be, or how you should react to what is, for many in this country, it's a social statement, it's a political statement, and an invasive spiritual statement. Do not dictate to me what my faith should be, you Nazi cow, all right? That's about all I got to say on that. People have the right to just go to work, and I think that's what we're seeing here. In NFL news, Lamar Jackson's contract issue, I have been amazed how everyone's trying to turn this into a race thing with Lamar Jackson's contract. I'll just tell you right now, it is not a race thing. It is a skill set. The NFL has no problem. Maybe at one time they did. But they sure don't now. In terms of paying black quarterbacks, drafting black quarterbacks, employing black quarterbacks, as well as black backups and black quarterbacks on their practice squad at third string, right? Every year around, there's always somebody trying to muck up a race issue here. And this is not a race issue. The number 2 paid quarterback in the NFL is Russell Wilson. The number 3 paid quarterback in the NFL is Kyler Murray. The number 4 paid quarterback in the NFL is Deshaun Watson. The number 5 paid quarterback in the NFL is Patrick Mahomes. Dak Prescott is tied for 7th. I think Matthew Stafford's with him. It's about skill set and availability with Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson is the thrill of a free fall, right? It's awesome. It's amazing to see, and nothing like it to experience. But a free fall, nonetheless, is still a risk, and he's a risk based on his style of play, because you got to change everything, and now you don't even know about his availability because that style puts him at risk constantly. All right. Also, in NFL news, the Rules Committee gets together. They can't figure out whether or not to review roughing the passer. They can't figure out what to do about kicks and punts. They can't figure out anything, but they have come to a conclusion that players wearing 0 and 00, right? They can wear those jerseys. And I'm sure somewhere Ken Burrow and Jim Otto are smiling again because 0 and 00 are allowed back in the NFL. Other player news, Calais Campbell signs with the Falcons for 1 year. He was one guy that I was kind of hoping the Rams would take a look at. I've always liked Calais Campbell. Scotty Miller reportedly has signed with the Falcons. Scotty Miller was that dude that played for the Buccaneers and had a really nice back half and playoff run when the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl in 2020. I think it was Scotty Miller that torched the Packers secondary for that late touchdown in the first half of the NFC title game. Well, he just signed with the Falcons. Marvin Jones, after 2 years in Jacksonville, rejoins Detroit. That's a good signing for Detroit. And here's the one that interesting thing for me as we segue into Ram talk. Unless somebody has something different out there, and whoever's out there, thank you for watching us live. Unless you have something, something I don't, because I've been looking, is A'Shawn Robinson still hasn't found a home. Going on about 10, 12 days ago, he met with the Giants, and nothing came of it, and he hasn't found a home. Currently, I checked on PFF, he's projected to make a contract worth 1 year at 3 rocks. That's 1 year, $3 million. Initially, before the season ended, going into this year, he was projected to be worth 3 years, 24 rocks. That means $8 million a year. No one's giving him that, right? And the market is starting to dry up, and they're saying he's still worth 3 rocks. I would say if the Rams could get him at 2, bring him back. I got no problem bringing him back. I just don't want to pay him significant money. And that would be a really nice piece to add to, the rejoining of, Jonah Williams is still there. Marquise Copeland is back. Bobby Brown, we hope, is developing. I'm going to talk about Bobby Brown in a second. And then bring in A'Shawn Robinson, and that would bring some stability and some experience. I think I broke this down 2 episodes ago. If you take the Rams' 8 defensive players, the back 8, so to speak, if they're running a traditional 34, their back 8 players have 11 years of experience. Back 8, 11 years of experience. If you just take Aaron Donald out of the mix and you just add Copeland and Jonah Williams, you're talking 10 players with about 13 to 14 years of experience combined. And that's no bueno. So if A'Shawn Robinson can come back for 2 rocks, if there's room for 3, 2 rocks, I'd say bring him back. So one of the things that you like to see is you look at the Rams roster and you project, who should we keep an eye on? And last year I remember talking about Tutu Atwell. I remember talking about Terrell Burgess because I was very much in the Terrell Burgess column there. And so this isn't like who I'm saying is going to break out, but this is someone to keep an eye on. This is a make or break season for them, or their time is now. And the first one I want to mention is with the edge position, such in flux right now, right? You got Michael Hoyt and Kier Thomas, and you don't have anything at edge. The guy that I was thinking about that played some in the back half of last year, he got 41 snaps in 6 games, is Daniel Hardy. And Daniel Hardy is 6'3", 240, heck of an athlete. And, he saw some time at the back half of the season, which is pretty good for a guy that was taken 236 overall in the 7th round, right? Went to Montana State, good athlete. You wonder, is this a guy with a full year now under his belt in the bigs, if maybe he can turn into something? I definitely think he has more juice going after the quarterback than Kier Thomas. I do. Michael Hoyt had more experience, but I think in the end, I don't think Hoyt is definitely a go get the quarterback guy. But could Daniel Hardy develop? And since he did get some playing time last year, he's interesting to me. He's really, really interesting to me. Another guy that's really interesting to me is Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson, I want to see it because I was really happy to see a couple of Facebook guys on a couple of the Ram pages say he needs his shot because he didn't get any time with Matthew Stafford last offseason. Of course, the Rams don't play in the preseason. And then when the offensive line went down faster than the Titanic, Stafford, when he was playing, was just sticking with what was familiar, which was Cooper Kupp. And so I'd really like to see Allen Robinson get his shot this year with the Rams, a full offseason with Matthew Stafford, a summer with Matthew Stafford. He's 6'3", 211, and he has an enormous contract that I don't see anyone taking off our hands. And so yeah, I'd really like to see Allen Robinson break through this year. He's someone I'm rooting for. I want to see what can happen here. And the third guy is Bobby Brown III. Bobby Brown was taken in the 4th round, 118 overall in 2021. That's premium pick for the Rams. If you're taken at 118, 4th round by the Rams, that means you need to play 325. His rookie season was a wash. But the dude out of Texas A&M played 164 snaps last year, 9 games. Most of those games with no Aaron Donald alongside of him. It was essentially a rookie year. And I can't help but think, given his size, this is his opportunity. And he did play. He did have a few moments last year where he played well. And there were some moments last year where he looked like a guy in his 2nd year who hadn't played very much. But at 6'4", 325, he did show glimpses. And I think he's a better longer term prospect because of his size than Jonah Williams or Copeland inside in the interior. So, okay, cool. I'm Joe Tarosian. I was a sports writer for 21 years, paid sports writer for 21 years. And I worked at various newspapers, websites, had a couple of flirtations with some magazines. And I was one of the founding members at Mid-Valley Sports, and I was there. And now those guys, Tim and Dwayne, they cover the NFL. They're in the room with the Chargers, and I get to do RamView. I do this, and I write books. My books can be found on Amazon. Type in Joe Tarosian, and you'll see a couple of high school football novels, as well as some dystopian Christian. And the reason I do this and the reason I write books is because I supplement my income because my day job is as a pastor of a small church in Burbank Faith Naz, and we're also online, Burbank Faith Virtual, and you can follow us right here on YouTube at Burbank Faith Virtual, also on Facebook, Burbank Faith Virtual, and check us out there. And I think that's why I got posed the question in regards to the NHL and the LGBT. Everyone's trying to, again, stir the pot and everything. So I won't go too deep into that. I just wanted to answer the question. Sometimes it's fun when people ask you questions. And I think that's the commercial. Is that good? Did I do the commercial? Are we okay? All right, we're good. All right. Rams history. Let's talk about Rams history real quick. And we'll incorporate some NFL history here. On this date, March 29th, 2001, the Rams traded Kevin Carter, defensive end, to the Tennessee Titans, the same Tennessee Titans they had beaten 2 seasons before, for the Super Bowl win. They traded Kevin Carter, who had been a 6th overall pick out of Florida in 1995 from the Rams. And he played for them really well for about, 6 seasons. And they won a Super Bowl. But they traded him in 2001 to the Titans for the 29th overall pick in the 2001 draft. So they drafted him 6th overall. They got the 29th overall pick in the 2001 draft, and they took Ryan Pickett out of Ohio State. And Pickett played 5 years for the Rams, and he was so-so. He had a really good 5th year and then left as an unrestricted free agent and played about 8 years with the Packers and then another year with the Texans. So he had a nice career. He just didn't have an exceptional career with the Rams. Good 5th year, and then he left as a free agent. Carter, who had 17 sacks in 99 and 10.5 in 2000, finished his career with 104 sacks, but he only hit double digits one more time after leaving the Rams. Spent 4 years in Tennessee, 2 in Miami, 2 in Tampa Bay before he called it a career. Also on this day, I wanted to run through some other stuff in NFL history. Chuck Foreman, 12th overall in the 1973 draft, signed with the Vikings. And Barry Smith, a wide receiver out of Florida State, number 21 overall, signed with the Green Bay Packers. Chuck Foreman was one of the top backs of the 70s, and maybe in a revisit should get a little look. Hall of very good, I guess. But he was a pretty top-notch back. Signature move, the little pirouette in the open field. But he was number 12 overall. Barry Smith was a wide receiver the Packers drafted number 21 overall in 73. You got to figure the Packers in 73, they were a running team with a strong defense at the time with MacArthur Lane and John Brockington, and they needed a receiver, and Barry Smith wasn't the guy. And the Vikings get a game changer in Chuck Foreman, and the Packers get Barry Smith, and that's why the Packers don't really get back to the playoffs until the 90s. Anyway, threw that out there. On this day in 1982, the Buccaneers traded Dewey Selman, Leroy Selman's brother, Oklahoma guy, to the Chargers for a 4th rounder in 84. And the Buccaneers took that 4th round pick and sent it to the Broncos for Steve DeBerg. And the Broncos took a guy named Randy Robbins. Does anyone remember Randy Robbins? Randy Robbins played 8 years in Denver, a year in New England, and he played in 3 Super Bowls. He was one of those guys that you always saw chasing Timmy Smith or chasing, chasing a Redskin receiver or a 49er receiver, Ricky Sanders or somebody. You always felt bad for the Broncos when they were losing those Super Bowls, and one of those guys in that secondary was Randy Robbins. Some names that popped up on this date: the LA Express, USFL, traded former UCLA quarterback Tom Ramsey to the Oakland Invaders for a draft pick. And then in 1988, the KC Chiefs, the Chiefs gave up on their 1983 first-round draft pick, Todd Blackledge, and sent him to the Steelers for a 4th rounder. Sad day for the Rams on 1991. The Cleveland Browns signed former Rams free safety Vince Newsom. Sound familiar? Popular Rams free safety signing with the Cleveland Browns? Yeah, and that was Vince Newsom. And then the big one, a great day for all Cowboy haters across the world. On this day in 1994, Jimmy Johnson resigned as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And they're still feeling the effects 29 years later. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, that's just... Someone said, Joe, will you ever root for the Cowboys when they play the Russians? And how long will I hate the Cowboys? Well, until they rot and lie stinking in the earth. There we go. Not a Cowboy fan here. Finally, I wanted to get this one through. On this day in 2001, the same day of the Kevin Carter trade, on March 29, 2001, wide receiver Jim Benton died at the age of 84. Benton was drafted by the Rams out of Arkansas, 11th overall, 2nd round in 1938. He was a star receiver. He was the Cooper Kupp of the 1940s, and I'll go into that. 6'3", 200 pounds, massive hands, known for making big catches. He spent 9 years in the league, 8 with the Rams, and he had his 2 best seasons in 1945 and 1946. In fact, the Rams won the World Championship in 1945. In a 9-game season, Benton caught 45 passes for 1,067 yards, averaged 23.7 yards per catch, and scored 8 touchdowns. The following year, when the team moved to Los Angeles, he caught 63 passes for 981 yards and 6 touchdowns in 9 games. In his career, he had 288 career catches. 45 of them went for touchdowns. Really, in those days, it was Don Hutson in Green Bay, and it was Jim Benton for the Rams. He had a heart murmur, so he couldn't serve in World War II, and the Rams didn't play in 43, so they loaned him to the Bears. And he caught a touchdown pass in the World Championship game for the Bears in 1943. So he literally won 2 titles in 43 and 45 in his career. And that 1945 Rams team was quarterbacked by Bob Waterfield. And what I found was interesting about this is Waterfield threw 14 touchdown passes and 17 picks, and the Rams won the title. Do you remember when Matthew Stafford threw 17 picks in 2021 and everyone said he led the league in interceptions? You know what? Interceptions are overrated. It's about when the interception happens and where on the field they happen. Picks themselves can happen in 10,000 different ways. Stafford threw 2 picks in the Super Bowl, and neither one of those picks were his fault. So people really don't look and understand when it comes to picks. Also, on that 1945 team, the Rams as a team completed 100 passes. Waterfield completed 89. A team completes 100 passes, and Benton caught 45 of them. 45 of them. Does that sound like they were going to him all the time? Does it feel a little Cooper Kupp-like, right? 9 passes for 125 yards and the go-ahead touchdown in the 1945 tie game over the Redskins that the Rams won 15-14. Also, that Thanksgiving, him and Waterfield connected 10 times for a then league record 303 yards in 1945. And the Rams won Thanksgiving over Detroit 28-21. But Jim Benton passed away on this day at the age of 84 of cancer, and he's completely forgotten. But what you're seeing Cooper Kupp do, the Cooper-centric offense was the Benton-centric offense in 1945, and deserves to be remembered, huh? Jim Benton, out of Arkansas, years in the league, 8 years with the Rams, Hall of the very, very good. Or maybe played a couple fame. I hope that's not too redundant, not too in the weeds for you. That stuff interesting. Rams news. I saw a little bit on Rams news breaking on Rams Wire on Twitter, and they're talking about quarterbacks. And we've already talked about quarterbacks on this show in terms of who the free agent quarterbacks are and who's out there to draft. I feel like we were ahead of the curve on everybody on this. That's why you got to watch RamView, subscribe, like, leave comments, share, so we can build our footprint. But in terms of Rams quarterbacks, I'll only add this. If Hendon Hooker or Tanner McKee are available at number 69, the Rams should grab either one of them. I think they got to build for the future, and it would be neat to see if they can have a guy in-house for 2 years with the capability to be the replacement for Matthew Stafford. If not, you want to bring in some trash off the street, as long as that trash isn't John Wolford. I know that sounds bad, trash. If you want to bring in some discarded material, let's just make sure it's not that. Or maybe put some faith in Bryce Perkins. All right. Other news we talked about: players report April 17th, OTAs end of May, beginning of June. Mandatory minicamp starts June 13th in Irvine. We know the Rams that have left: Taylor Rapp, Bobby Wagner, David Edwards, Brandon Powell, Riley Dixon, David Long, Nick Scott, Greg Gaines, Matt Orzek, Matt Gay, Baker Mayfield, Ramsey, Floyd. We know those guys. We know where former Rams have gone. And who are the Rams that are still out there? Well, Jacob Harris, Trayvon Howard, and A'Shawn Robinson. Looking at ESPN, produced a 7-round mock draft, and their mock draft for the Rams, they did all 7 rounds for the Rams, and I thought some of it was interesting. Some of it I thought was lazy. Some of it pretty good. Their 36th overall pick going to the Rams, they ripped off Steve Ramirez. Steve, they ripped you off. They've got Kansas State edge linebacker Felix Anudike-Uzomah going to the Rams at number 36. I think they looked at your thing, Steve. At 69, they have DJ Turner, Michigan, which I'll dance with that. And then at number 77, they have the Rams taking Rashee Rice, out of SMU. And I don't see the Rams taking a receiver at 77. Not if Allen Robinson is still around. I don't see it. He was a Senior Bowl participant. And a couple things you should put together as you do your draft board is that if the Rams have seen somebody play if somebody's been in the Senior Bowl and they've interviewed them, those are two key things. Rams historically in the Snead era love Senior Bowl people. And just keep an eye on that. Pittsburgh running back Israel Abanikanda at 167. 171, they have quarterback Jake Haener, Fresno State. They're ripping off Steve Ramirez. Haener played in the Senior Bowl. And then at 177, Nick Hampton, outside linebacker, Appalachian State, played in the Senior Bowl. And then the obligatory safety. You cannot do a Rams mock draft without drafting a safety. Rams always draft safeties. And ESPN has Anthony Johnson Jr., safety out of Iowa State. 189, they got guard Jackson Kirkland, Washington. 191, Purdue wide receiver Charlie Jones. At 223, they've got Mekhi Blackman out of USC, cornerback. He was a Senior Bowl participant. And then Chad Ryland, kicker out of Maryland. Players the Rams have met with from Purdue, Corey Trice, Payne Durham, Aiden O'Connell, Northwestern defensive tackle, Aiden Adebo War out of Northwestern. Brutal name. I kind of hope the Rams don't draft him because I'm just going to call him Chuck. Tight end Luke Schoonmaker, Michigan. Edge Will McDonald, Iowa State. Defensive tackle MG Anderson, Iowa State. Cornerback Carrington Valentine, Kentucky. Wide receiver Tyler Scott, Cincy. Wide receiver Trey Tucker, Cincy. The kid from Pittsburgh, Abanikanda. And then, of course, Julius Brents, Kansas State. And again, look and see if they've had interviews with the Rams and they've gone to Senior Bowl. That could tell you they are on the Rams' radar. It's not an absolute, but it could mean they're on the Rams' radar. Finally, the thing I led with, the Rams have picks 36, 77, 36, 69, 77. And I was thinking, like, well, what if the Rams, who are the Rams' best picks at these overall draft positions? Like, who's the best player they've ever taken at 36? Who's the best player they've ever taken at 69 overall, at 77 overall? And so I went through the Rams history of the Rams draft, and there weren't too many hits, but there were some big ones that did come through. Rams have 11 picks this year, and if they could hit on 4, that would be pretty good. 4 starters, 4 key contributors. Let me ask you this. At number 36, the best player the Rams have ever drafted at number 36 was Mike Wilcher out of North Carolina in 1983. 6'3", 238. Would you like to have Mike Wilcher as one of your edge linebackers right now? I would. The best player the Rams have ever taken at number 77 overall, punter Dale Hatcher. Now, this year, that's awful high to take a punter. But if the Rams scored a Dale Hatcher in this draft, he was first-team All-Pro in 1985. Now, that was his best year, but he was a pretty good punter for the Rams. At number 171, the best player the Rams have ever taken in that position at number 171 overall is Greg Zuerlein, right? Would you take a Greg Zuerlein right now? I'd take a Greg Zuerlein. Could you imagine coming out of this draft with a Dale Hatcher and a Greg Zuerlein and an edge player named Mike Wilcher? Yeah, I do that. And then who's the best player the Rams have ever taken at number 189, which is where they've got a draft pick this year? In 1978, they took this cat named Reggie Doss out of Hampton Institute. He played 10 years for the team and never missed a game. The only games he missed were strike-affected games. Three games were strike-affected in 1987, and 7 games were completely wiped out in 1982. Those were games Reggie Doss didn't play in. Instead, he played in 149 games, started 89 of them, 31 and a half career sacks, but he's 6'4", 265, and I think he would play bigger now. But if the Rams had a draft this year, and they ended up with a Mike Wilcher, Dale Hatcher, Greg Zuerlein, and a contributing player like Reggie Doss, and I know a lot of guys in my block that loved Reggie Doss, I think we'd say that was a pretty good draft for the Rams, right? You get your edge guy, you get your interior defensive lineman, And then you get your special teams completely taken care of. If that's all the Rams scored in this draft, I'd be happy. I'd still want a corner. I'd still want a tight end. But Mike Wiltshire, Dale Hatcher, Greg Zuerlein, Reggie Doss, the best picks the Rams have ever had at 36, 77, 171, and 189. Man, I will dance. That sounds really, really, really good. Okay, I'm Joe Terosian, and I am going to get ready to wrap this up real quick here, and let's go over the comics. It's been a stone groove being with you guys. It's always a stone groove, but just a reminder, Rams have 36, 69, 77, 167, 171, 177, 182, 189, 191, 223, and 251. When someone tells you the Rams don't have draft picks, the Rams have draft picks, and they're probably going to have 12 next year. Okay, you need to like, you need to subscribe, you need to follow us on Spotify. I'm Joe Terosian. I just want to say thank you so much for clicking on and for supporting us. Be sure to leave a comment. I love to talk. I love to answer questions, and sometimes things are slowing down, so I will talk a little bit about Ram history. Check out Jim Benton. Go to footballreference.com, and you'll find a pretty surprising career. Okay, guys, God bless. Take care. We will see you soon.